Hi, my name is Star Huddleston, and I'm a student at the Louisville School of Massage. I am not a professional massage or a licensed massage therapist yet, but I intend to be. And I'm having some cherries today and talking about some other muscles of how I remember their movements. So how I remembered the movements of the pec major, it's got fame. It flexes the arm, it adducts the arm, it medially rotates the arm, and it provides extension for the arm. Give it up. Okay, go ahead and start rolling, because I think it would be fun to watch me fiddle with this stuff. Okay.
You got it.
He hasn't had coffee yet. This is Famad, and he is all about coffee. What we're talking about is the Tensor Fascia Latte muscle, which, you know, everyone calls it the coffee muscle. So how I remembered the movements of this muscle is I used to know a guy that would come into the coffee shop where I used to go all the time, and his name really was Famad, and he was all about the coffee. I'd see him in there like all the time, which is weird because I guess that means that I was there all the time. So, but anyway, how I remember the movements of this muscle is what Famad does to get his coffee. So, keep in mind the movements for this are at the hip. You have to flex your thigh to get into that coffee shop. You've got to abduct that thigh if you're getting out of your car or if you're getting off of a bike to get into the coffee shop. You're gonna medially rotate that thigh while you're walking. Oh my God, that was so Kentucky. While you're walking?
While you're walking.
You're going to anteriorly tilt your pelvis if you're climbing onto that curb to get into the coffee shop. And you might depress the same side pelvis if you're waiting in line for that cup of coffee. So thanks, Famad. Now let's talk about the deltoid. This is kind of weird. This is how my brain works. So I don't know, it's probably more of a laugh for most people. But this is how I remember the actions of this muscle. There are 7 major motions of the muscle. So this guy, I think his name is Zion Williams. Anyway, he's like only 20 years old and he's real famous right now in the NBA. Which may or may not exist anymore, but this is Zion's little brother. So he is holding his family member, right? How I remember that is deltoid, held fam. So that could apply to a baby or a small member of your family, but that's how I remember this muscle's motions. And the movements involve the GH joint or the glenohumeral joint. So we've got horizontal flexion and extension of the arm. We've got extension. We have lateral rotation of the arm. We have downward rotation of the arm. We have flexion of the arm. We have abduction of the arm and medial rotation of the arm. That's how you held fam.
Nice.
I'm ready for some dried cherries.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the trapezius muscle. This is probably the most ridiculous, well, you're the judge on this, but I think it's the most ridiculous way that I've remembered a muscle and the movements, but now that it's stuck in my head, I'll never forget it. So meet Cleater. He is the trapeze artist that I'm gonna talk about today. You can see him hanging from the swing. Don't get him mixed up with his brother Cletus. We're not gonna talk about Cletus. Cleator's the more moody, emotional, a member of the circus. He joined the circus a long time ago. He doesn't really like it anymore. He's kind of burnt out. It's caused a lot of emotional strife between him and his brother. So how do I remember the movements of the muscle? I just remember moody Cleator. So there's contralateral rotation of Cleator's head and neck at the spinal joints. There's lateral flexion of the neck at the spinal joints. There's extension of the head and neck at the spinal joints. And the way that the book, the muscle book that I used for these actions, I was a little confused about, extension of head. That doesn't make sense, but it's the way that the muscle attaches to the occiput and the nuchal ligament that provides for that extension of the head. Okay, and there's elevation of the scapula at the scapulocostal joints, or the SCC joints. There is depression of the scapula at the SCC joints. That's why I think that Cleator has some issues. That's how I remember depression, as opposed to like downward rotation. He's a moody guy. He doesn't like this profession anymore.
He feels a lot.
He certainly does. There is upward rotation of the scapula at the scapulocostal joints, and there's retraction of the scapula at the SCC joints. There's Cleator. Feel free to go to the circus and watch him act. He'll put on a show for you. Yeah, I can probably do the 3 that I was talking about. So, one muscle that I remember is the serratus anterior. So, I remember the serratus anterior by PU. So, what does the serratus anterior do? It protracts the scapula. Nice. And it provides upward rotation of the scapula. That's a word. Okay. Good. And that's how I remember the serratus interior. All right. So, how do I remember another one? The splenius capitis. The splenius capitis looks like a bandage. I think that's part of the name of it. So a bandage will lie on your skin. So.
And lie on its back.
So we have lateral flexion of the neck. We have ipsilateral rotation, so that's same side rotation. I should say the head and the neck. And we've got extension of the head and the neck. Head and neck. Yay. Is this? Yeah, that looks like words. Okay, and then the, so we did PU and serratus anterior. We did the splenius capitis that will lie. And the other muscle that I remember is the levator scapula, because just the way the attachments are, it looks just kind of like weird and slimy and kind of like an eel to me, like a snake that's twisted. So what does the levator scapula do? An eel. It provides for extension of the head and neck. Or is it just the neck? I think it's just the neck, sorry. Sorry guys, this is gonna go on the blooper reel. Extension of the neck. It has, elevation of the scapula, hence the name. And it provides for lateral flexion of the neck. Woohoo! And that's how I remember the levator scapula. And I can do the motions, even with the hat on, for extra effect. This is what extension of the head, or extension of the neck. We've got, what's another one? Elevates the scapula. And we have lateral flexion. The head's staying on, this is great. And then for the splenius capitis, we've got lateral flexion. We've got ipsilateral rotation. And we have extension of the neck, so that's gonna look like this. Right, and then the serratus anterior, we've got protraction of the scapula. It's gonna look like this. And then we've got upward rotation. It'll look like this. Ah!
There it goes.
Nice. All right.